When we last left our heroes, they had banded together with Baron Leo of Norwich to raise an army and march towards the capital of the kingdom to fight the evil dictator controlling the lands. They were now right outside the walls of the city of Berkton, ready to attack. These soldiers began the assault on the city. Meanwhile, the party used a secret tunnel they knew about to sneak underneath the walls into the inner city. They emerged in the bathroom of a restaurant near the center of the city and made their way outside.
I think we should free the Valorian Lord's prisoners before we open the city gate. The prison is right down the street and most of the guards are probably defending the walls right now.
No, we need to open the gates. That's what we said we'd do.
We're still going to open the gates, but if we can get a bunch of prisoners causing chaos inside the city, then it should be easier to sneak over there without anyone noticing us. Also, both Char and I have people we care about in that prison, and I fear that they'll execute all of the prisoners because of the attack.
That's a chance of people dying, which I don't think they'll waste the time on right now. Meanwhile, there are people dying as we speak outside the city wall because we still haven't opened the gate for them like we said we would.
Alright, Peter, I'll defer to your judgment, but if he's dead when we get back, then it's on your head.
The party snuck over to the outer gate, killed the guards around it, and pulled the lever to open up the gates and allow the army inside. As the soldiers surged into Berkton, they also began to use trebuchets to launch wildfire into the center section of the city, where the castle itself lay. The party knew they had to get to the Valorian Lord quickly, and so they decided to once again delay going to the prison, trusting that the attacking soldiers would be able to free the prisoners. They used back alleys to sneak back up to the castle and found the gate locked. Imsh grabbed a vial of alchemist fire from his pack and began to melt through the door. However, while they were waiting for it to burn through, they heard footsteps from behind them. They turned around and saw an elf in a white cloak walking up towards them. In both of his hands he was holding severed heads, and the party immediately recognized him as the Inquisitor. One of the severed heads belonged to Lizar, the leader of Char's old organization known as the Ghost Slayers, and the other one belonged to Carson, Creed's mentor who he had spent almost the entire campaign searching for, and who I'd kind of forgotten to mention until this episode. The Inquisitor dropped the heads onto the stone street with a bloody squelch, and opened his mouth to say something, but before any words could come out, Creed used Sovereign to shoot a lightning bolt at him. Due to some lucky rolls paired with some damage increasing abilities and the fact that the Inquisitor hadn't had time to activate his magic shield yet, the lightning bolt immediately killed him. Creed then turned to the rest of the party and said, "He never existed. Nobody will remember his name." It was Imsh's turn next, and he quickly cleaved the enemy mage in half, and the combat was over. At this point, the alchemist fire had finished burning through the castle gate, and they quickly rushed through it. They moved through the main courtyard up towards the throne room and swung open the doors. On the far end of the room was a silver throne, and lounging on the throne was the Valorian Lord himself. He stood up and looked at the party. "Ah, so you've finally arrived, and based on the burning city behind you, I'm guessing you didn't exactly come here to give me the rest of the Dragon Fangs and swear fealty to me, did you? Do you actually think you can beat me?" "Yes, and trust me, they won't recognize your body when I'm done." Then the Valorian Lord drew his two fangs and began the fight. One of the fangs the Valorian Lord had was named Rot, and it was a Vorpal longsword. If you don't know what a Vorpal longsword is, it has the ability to instantly decapitate any foe if you get a natural 20 on your attack. The other fang was named Quake, and was a massive warhammer. One other thing that I should probably mention is that early on in the campaign, Harvey the Bard had told the party that the Valorian Lord had tied his soul to Rot, and he would regenerate back to life a few seconds after death every single time they killed him, unless they destroyed it. The fight started slow enough, with Ricard using magical vines to slow down the Valorian Lord and damage him until he took a turn to get rid of them, and everyone else was moving into the main chamber and getting into their positions to attack. But then the Valorian Lord got a natural 20 on his attack with Rot against Imsh. This would have immediately killed him if Peter hadn't been able to use an ability to cancel the critical hit. However, he could only use this ability 4 more times. On Peter's turn, he used an ability to make the Valorian Lord vulnerable to the next damage he took, and then Imsh's turn was next. "Excuse me, Mr. Valorian Lord, but I'd like to lodge a complaint about your government." Imsh then swung Cinder at him, and used a one-time ability that would make him roll 7 times the normal amount of damage for his attack. That ability, paired with the vulnerability that Peter had cast, meant that Imsh dealt 278 damage in a single hit. The Valorian Lord dropped to his knees from the sheer amount of damage he'd just taken, and then he entered phase 2 of the fight. The ground of the throne room began to crumble around them, with massive pits dropping into an infinite void opening up all around the room. The Valorian Lord himself healed all of his wounds and grew black wings of void energy. Kneel before your emperor, kneel before your god. Then the battle truly began, with both sides trading blows, until one of the hits downed Imsh and flung him back 15 feet into one of the pits. Or it would have, however Imsh was able to use his half-orc heritage to stay up with 1 hit point, and then grabbed the edge of the floor at the last second. So he was now hanging above an endless void, with only a single hand preventing him from falling. Would you like some help?
Yes, please.
Ricard helped Imsh back up into the room, and Imsh immediately ran over to the Valorian Lord and swung Cinder at him. He got a crit and cut the Valorian Lord in half. Quick! Destroy Rot before he comes back! It was Creed's turn next, and he picked up Quake from the Valorian Lord's body and swung it down towards Rot, shattering it into a million pieces. The entire keep began to collapse around them as they fled out into the streets, where they found that the army had managed to take the city and the continent was saved. However, back inside the keep, there had been a brief moment where the party had owned all 6 of the Fangs, which gave them the power equivalent to that of a god, but just for a brief moment, so they each had one wish they could spend. They could bring someone back from the dead, acquire powerful magic, or get whatever they most desired in life. Char used his wish to bring back all of the Ghost Slayers the Valorian Lord had killed during his conquest of the continent. Ricard used his wish so that his sister would be able to achieve something of even greater honor than what he had just done. Peter used his wish to bring back any buildings and such that had been destroyed by the Valorian Lord, such as Boatlandia and Tarnstead, however the people who had been killed remained dead. Creed used his wish to cause slavery in the Underdark to cease to exist. And lastly, Imsh used his wish to bring Guppy back to life. Imsh!
Guppy!
You guys did it! You saved the kingdom! Holy crap, I slept for so long, that's crazy!
I did it all for you, buddy.
After the campaign ended, Baron Leo of Norwich became the new King of Drusira, and Ricard became the new Baron of Norwich, where he used his fortune to rebuild the group known as the Dragon Slayers. Creed took Carson's body to a scenic location in the woods near his hometown and buried him there. After that, he spent the rest of his days traveling the world adventuring and trying to find a way to free his soul from Harvey. However, no matter how many cities he visited, no matter how many taverns he went to, he never again saw Harvey the Bard. Char went back to the rest of the Ghost Slayers, and together they defended the demonic thicket from otherworldly invaders for the rest of his life. Imsh and Guppy traveled the world together, going on adventures and saving the world a few more times, until they eventually disappeared after going to a place known only as the Island. Peter traveled back to his home city of Darkwell, where he used his magic and money to make food for the poor and generally worked to improve the city. Eventually, he used his money to create an adventuring guild known as the Dungeon Delvers of Darkwell. They put out information about Harvey the Bard, warning people against trusting him and requesting that they report any sightings back to him. A long time later, they got a series of anonymous tips about Harvey's position, and the Dragon Slayers of Norwich were able to capture him and publicly execute him in the main square of Burkton. And that's how the Hunt for the Dragon Fangs ended.